If you are planning to travel to Singapore, you should think twice. Often referred to as the Forbidden Land, Singapore is home to some of the most restrictive laws and regulations in the world. From censorship to harsh penalties for drug offenses, there are many things to consider before traveling to this unique country. In this video, we'll explore the reasons why you should think twice before stepping foot in Singapore, so stay tuned until the end. It's illegal to chew gum. Chewing gum is one of those activities that seem like it should be harmless, yet it is strictly illegal in Singapore. The country banned the sale of chewing gum in 1992 to help keep the streets clean and to discourage vandalism. Anyone caught buying, selling or using chewing gum can face fines and even jail time. There are exceptions for therapeutic chewing gum, which is allowed only with a doctor's prescription. So if you're heading to Singapore, leave your chewing gum at home. You can be fined for littering. If you're visiting Singapore, it is important to remember that littering is strictly prohibited and comes with hefty fines. In addition to the fines, you may also have to perform some community service if found guilty of littering. Littering is taken very seriously in Singapore, and you could be fined up to $1,000 for the offense. Littering includes throwing garbage or any form of trash on public property or land, such as sidewalks, parks, roads and beachfronts. In order to avoid being fined for littering, make sure to properly dispose of all your trash and not leave anything behind on public grounds. If you're staying in a hotel, you should use the designated bins provided and not throw any litter around the premises. It's also important to be mindful of where you're walking and what you're doing, as there are cameras everywhere in Singapore which can easily identify anyone who has committed an offense. So make sure to keep your hands clean and remember that there is a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to littering in Singapore. Spitting is also illegal. If you're thinking of spitting in public while visiting Singapore, think again. Spitting is considered a public nuisance and is strictly illegal in the country. According to Singapore's Public Order Act, anyone found spitting in public can be fined up to 1,000 Singapore dollars, approximately $750. The law also states that any person caught spitting in public will have their names and identities published in newspapers and other forms of media. In addition to this, they may also be made to undergo community service. Spitting is especially frowned upon in Singapore, since it is seen as a sign of disrespect and lack of care for the environment. Therefore, it is important to remember to never spit in public if you want to avoid any potential fines or punishments. You need a license to own a pet. If you plan on owning a pet in Singapore, you'll need to make sure you have the necessary license. All pets must be registered with the Agri-Food and Veterinary Authority, AVA. Licenses must be renewed every year and include a microchip and a photograph of your pet. There are also restrictions on what type of pet you can own. Dogs must be classified as guard dogs, house dogs, sporting dogs, working dogs, or a non-classified dog. Pet cats must be sterilized and vaccinated for rabies, as well as registered with the AVA. For other animals such as birds and reptiles, a license is required for the sale of these animals. In addition, there are strict rules about importing animals from abroad. Given the restrictive laws around pet ownership, it's important to be aware of all the requirements before bringing home a furry friend. Pets provide companionship, love and joy, and they deserve to be well cared for in return. So take the time to understand the local regulations and make sure you have the right license to own a pet in Singapore. Jaywalking will cost you. Singapore is a very safe country, so it should come as no surprise that it takes its laws very seriously. One of those laws is against jaywalking, which carries a hefty fine. Jaywalking is defined as walking across the street without using an overhead bridge or designated crosswalk. If you are caught jaywalking, you can be issued a ticket with a fine of up to 1,000 Singapore dollars. It is important to obey all traffic laws while in Singapore, and especially to not jaywalk. Respect the laws of the country and always use a crosswalk or overhead bridge when crossing the street. There are cameras everywhere. Singapore is a city known for its heavy surveillance. There are cameras everywhere, including on street corners, in public parks, and inside subway stations. Even your apartment building may have CCTV cameras. This extensive surveillance is done to keep the city safe and to deter criminal activities. It also serves as a reminder to citizens that there are consequences to their actions if they break any laws. You should be aware that while you are in Singapore, you are likely to be under constant watch. Caning is still a punishment. In Singapore, caning is still a punishment for certain crimes. In cases of vandalism, the offender will be sentenced to 3 to 8 strokes of the cane. Other offenses that are punishable by caning include drug trafficking, robbery, and immigration offenses. Caning is carried out by a professional caner, who is usually a prison officer with special training in the practice. The caning takes place in a room specifically designed for the purpose, and is meant to be a deterrent. It is a painful experience, and often leaves permanent physical and psychological scars. For those convicted of crimes punishable by caning, the punishment is typically administered in addition to a prison sentence. This means that not only will the offender have to serve time in jail, but they will also face caning upon release. Given the severity of the punishment, it's no surprise that many people think twice before committing a crime in Singapore. Caning may not be the most effective form of punishment, but it does serve as a reminder of the consequences of criminal activity. There's a death penalty for some drugs. Drug trafficking is a major problem in Singapore and the government takes it very seriously. Possession of drugs can result in lengthy jail sentences and in some cases, even death penalties. The Misuse of Drugs Act states that anyone convicted of importing, exporting, manufacturing or possessing more than the allowed amount of certain drugs can be punished with death by hanging. These drugs include cannabis, cocaine, heroin, morphine and methamphetamine. The Misuse of Drugs Act also provides for mandatory death sentences for people convicted of drug trafficking 2 or more times. The Singapore government has taken a hard stance against drug abuse and is determined to deter people from participating in such activities. If you are caught with illegal drugs in Singapore, you could face a long prison sentence or even the death penalty. It is best to avoid drugs altogether when in Singapore and never carry any with you as the consequences are severe. You can be jailed for vandalizing a car. Vandalism is not tolerated in Singapore and if you're caught vandalizing a car, you could face serious consequences. The punishment for vandalism in Singapore is imprisonment of up to 3 years or a fine of up to $2,000. If you're found guilty of damaging or defacing someone's property, the court may also order that you pay for the cost of repairs. Vandalism can include scratching the paint of a car, writing graffiti on it, or breaking its windows. In more serious cases, you may be charged with mischief and face more severe punishments. Make sure you stay away from any acts of vandalism while in Singapore and respect other people's property. It's illegal to not flush a public toilet. In Singapore, not flushing a public toilet can land you in hot water. It is illegal and punishable by law to not flush a public toilet after using it. This law is taken very seriously and those who are caught not flushing can be charged with a fine. The fines can vary from $150 to more than $2,000 depending on the severity of the offense. Not flushing a public toilet can also cause serious hygiene issues and health problems for those who use it after you. To prevent this, Singapore has strict laws about flushing public toilets. When in Singapore, it's important to remember to always flush the toilet after you use it, or you may face hefty fines or even jail time. Don't risk your safety or well-being over something as simple as forgetting to flush. To get other undiscovered secrets, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like the video and share it with your friends. Thank you.